Morning, everyone. Welcome to Transparency and Ethics. We have a very brief meeting today. Our one bill that's been lingering out there for a couple weeks due to working all those agency bills real quick. So this is the only thing I put on the agenda today. And so we have final action on Senate Bill 17 prohibiting a public agency from charging a fee under the Open Records Act for records requested for an audit by the Legislative Division of Post Audit. And Jason, are you on with us that you can give us a bill brief to refresh our memory? Do you see any of our revisers? Well, Jill or oh, Jason's coming. Okay, just to refresh our memories. Good morning, Jason. Can you hear us?
You just came on. Sorry about that.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we would like you to give us an update on Senate Bill 17. It's been a few weeks since we've heard this, and we're ready to work this bill today.
So Madam Chair, Senate Bill 17 was the bill relating to LPA audits, and to clarify that information requested by the Legislative Post Audit pursuant to an audit they are conducting is not an open records request, and therefore the municipality providing the records can't charge a reasonable fee under the Open Records Act for producing those documents. There was a bill just like this over on the House side, House Bill 2049, which was worked and passed out as a substitute for House Bill 2049. And I believe it's been referred to this committee, that basically changed the way in which this was approached. And instead of making an amendment to the Open Records Act, which is what Senate Bill 17 does, House Bill 2049 amends the Legislative Post Audit Act to clarify that no fees are to be charged for any documentation provided to LPA when they're conducting an audit.
Okay, thank you, Jason. And I do see 2049 is in our committee also. All right. I understand we have an amendment. Would you like to discuss that, Marcy, and then we can make a motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm happy to distribute it. This is an amendment that Jason Long helped produce, and it does essentially the same thing, excuse me, as that House bill. So let me distribute it.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, Senator Francisco, shouldn't have called you by your first name. And Senator Francisco, was this the amendment proposed by the League of Municipalities also, if I remember right?
It was, and they also worked with the reviser.
Okay. To prepare this.
This. So essentially their comment was that it should not be a change to the Open Records Act because it is really a issue for the Legislative Post Audit Committee, and there's other law addressing that. And so this new wording would more clearly state, and it's on the large block on the second page or third page of the bill, that E just say, notwithstanding any other provision of law, no public agency that is the subject of an audit pursuant to this section shall charge a fee for copies or access. So the other thing that I think we can suggest to the Legislative Division of Post Audit is when they're making a request, they just make it clear on their request that this is not a request under the Open Meetings Act. This is a request under the legislative post-audit.
Thank you, Senator Francisco. And we do have Justin Stowe with us in the audience. And Justin, if you wouldn't mind speaking to this just a moment to make sure that we're doing what you want to accomplish with this amendment and this bill if we adopt this.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Yes, my office is in support of this amendment. I think it's an elegant solution to the problem that we're trying to get something done. I realize the Kansas Open Record Act is complicated and has a lot of other facets, and so this meets our purposes, but I think keeps things cleaner in terms of the separation between what we're trying to accomplish and other issues surrounding Kansas Open Records Act. So happy to answer any questions that the committee has, ma'am.
Thank you, Senator Fascado.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So Senator Francisco, Justin, even though you just said, Senator Francisco, that they would make sure that they made it clear that it was a request from the legislature, is that in the bill somewhere that protects you, or, I mean, does that, do you?
Would you like to comment, Justin, or Senator Francisco?
I'll just comment that I know the League of Municipalities said that now that this has been brought to their attention, they're going to try to do more education. And it wouldn't be in the bill because it does not affect open records, but I will let.
Yeah, I would agree with the senator. I think what we've always had longstanding access through the Post Audit Act. So that typically when we come to an agency, we say we're asking this under the authority of the Post Audit Act. What has been a longstanding issue is the Kansas Open Record Act can also apply in those circumstances. There's been some confusion. So I think this helps remedy that when we ask it over here in the Post Audit Act, you can't charge fees under CORA, which since there is some overlap in how those things can be understood, I think this will address both issues. And I think there will be some value in educating members that that's what we're trying to do, keep them separate.
Senator Fascado.
And thank you, Madam Chair. And Jason, when you said reasonable fee, what is that fee that they might be charged?
Senator, the Open Records Act allows a government agency to charge a reasonable fee for the production of documents. That fee can vary depending on the type of documents being produced and the form and format in which they're made available to the requester. The statute simply requires that it be reasonable, which would be a judgment. If the fee was challenged in the court, it would be a judgment of the court as whether or not it was reasonable based on the costs incurred by the agency to produce those records.
Thank you, Jason. And Justin, just kudos for your operation too. I think Post Audit does a wonderful job and I'm happy to serve on it for the number of years I did. So we think you and your staff are a wonderful asset to the state. So just want to note that. And Senator Francisco, are you ready to make a motion?
Well, I think my question is, and it would be for the reviser, is there any difference between this amendment and the changes that were made in the House bill?
Jason, do you know the answer to that?
No, if you adopted the balloon amendment for Senate Bill 17, then Senate Bill 17 would be essentially identical to House Bill 2049 as it sits in your committee.
Senator Francisco.
Madam Chair, then I think the one thing that the committee can discuss is whether it's better to pass this or to just hold a hearing on the House bill and save a step.
Jason, can you help us with this? Because we'd have an identical bill. We could pass out the Senate bill and leave the House bill in our committee with the contents already in Senate Bill 17 if we make this change. What are our options?
Madam Chair, yes, your options would be either to work Senate Bill 17, in which case, if it passed the full Senate, then it would be referred to a House committee and have to be heard and worked again on the House side, and as you can see, the House committee has already heard and worked this bill in 2049. Your other option is to have a brief hearing on substitute for 2049 and work that bill instead, which already has this amendment applied to it. You can pass that out, and then if the Senate passes that without any further amendments, the bill would then go straight to the governor for possible for signature.
Okay. Any other comments on that? I'm of in the interest to save time for the state. Senator Schwab.
Chair, I do have a question on the amendment. Senator Francisco might be able to answer this for me. In, let's see, section C here, under all of the audits these are allowed, correct?
Yes, those are the audits.
And let me see the line. It's under section D, then it says, I'm assuming this is allowed access to all books, accounts, records, blah, 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 confidential or otherwise. Isn't something confidential, labeled confidential for that very reason? That you would have to have some kind of court order to access confidential information? That the word confidential concerns me, and maybe Senator Warren can help on that also.
Senator Francisco, or perhaps Jason, that might be in your area with your agency also. So whoever would like to take that.
The intention was not to change at all the documents that they can access. And certainly some members of this committee would be familiar with legislative post-audit when they review security measures or cybersecurity measures. Those are confidential. That review is done by the legislative committee in closed session, but the same would need to be available to legislative post-audit. If they're going to do an audit, it's not information that can be shared publicly, but it's information that they should have access to.
Would you like to add, Jason?
Thank you, Senator. That is correct. This is actually long-standing and long-existing language in the Post-Audit Act. So up until the very last clause E there, this has been in our Post-Audit Act for many, many years. All that is suggesting is that an agency can't tell us that we can't look at something simply because it's confidential. So for example, we are currently working on an audit of foster care case plans. There's a lot in that audit that is sensitive information, but for us to evaluate whether the Department of Children and Family Services are doing their job correctly, we have to be able to look at those underlying records. So that's been a long-standing access. We're still held to the same level of confidentiality. We are subject to any penalties if that information gets released. So we still have a lot of clauses that require us to follow practice, but that has been long-standing so that we can look at the things we need to as your auditors.
Senator Schwab.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm trying to understand all of this here. I thought the bill was to prohibit the public agency from charging a fee for this information. I wasn't aware that this bill was to change access to certain information. Am I mistaken on this?
Senator Francisco.
Thank you. Yes, because the bill was written for open records, then you have to bring in the existing statute and then just make an amendment to that. So that's why it looks like it's all new wording, but in fact, it's the current wording in our statutes with the change that it's very clear that they can't charge a fee. And our revisor can also comment on that.
Jason, could you add to that? And then Senator Warren, did you have a question afterwards too? Okay, Jason, can you talk us through that?
Yes, Madam Chair, just for clarification, whenever we amend any statute, the Constitution requires that the entire statute be printed in the bill. And that's why you see all of KSA 46-1114 in that box on page 3 of the balloon. We have to print the entire statute in the bill. The only change to that statute, though, is at the very bottom, subsection E would be new language added to that statute to prohibit the charging of any fee for copies or access to records requested by LPA. That's the only change. Everything else above subsection E is current law and would remain unchanged if the bill were to pass. I hope that clarifies.
Okay, good. All right. Jason, I'd like to ask you one more question. The best way to save the state money with our bills that we're passing out of committee, if we amend this bill, then we have an identical bill. If we don't amend it, we could send it to the consent calendar as an option. Just trying to find a way to proceed with this that's the most efficient. And I know you talked that through a little bit, but do you have any advice?
Yes, if you amend the bill, then you cannot place it on the consent calendar for passage. You could pass out substitute for House Bill 2049, which does what this amendment is proposing already. And if you make no amendment to that, I believe you can place it on the consent calendar as a substitute for 2049 because the House made that change, not your committee. And that would also not require a reprinting of the bill. If you adopt this amendment on Senate Bill 17, I would recommend that you also make it a substitute for Senate Bill 17 to make it clean, which would require a full reprinting of the bill to go to the full Senate. So if you're talking purely in terms of efficiency and printing costs, it'd probably be more efficient to simply pass out substitute for House Bill 2049.
Well, that does sound very efficient to me too. So we would be accomplishing the same thing, sending out the House bill with the contents of Senate Bill 17. Do I have that right, Jason?
Yes, just understand that 2049 in your committee is Senate Bill 17 with this amendment applied
Okay.
to it. You'd be essentially adopting this amendment if you passed out 2049.
The substitute. All right. I think I've got a good handle on that. Does that sound good to the committee that we're accomplishing the same thing without having another hearing and saving the state money on printing? Okay. Senator Francisco.
Would we not have to have hearing on the House bill?
Jason, would we need that hearing on the House bill to do that and table 17 today and then have the hearing on 2049? Just trying to find the best way to go through this.
Yes, following standard procedure, you would have a hearing on 2049 before you worked it. That could be a brief hearing right before you then move into working the bill. You could do both on the same day, Madam Chair.
No, committee, I think I'd prefer to do it that way and save the state the printing and the time, and we can go through that House bill very quickly. And we haven't set the agenda out for next week. So is everyone comfortable if we table 17 today for final action, and then we'll take it up next week in the House form? All right. Well, that's, and Senator Francisco, I'm sorry.
I'm wondering just procedurally if we might vote on this amendment and then have it clear that
That's our intent.
we
Okay.
adopted.
I think that's a fine idea. So, and so you've explained the bill, so would you like to make that motion?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move my amendment.
And do I have a second? Senator Fascadeau, any discussion? All those in, oh, I'm so sorry, Senator Thompson.
Would voting in favor of this amendment be the same as what you suggested, tabling it? Or would that just fix Senate Bill 17, and then we work them all. I'm just a little confused about what what we're voting on.
As I understand it, we adopt this amendment, then it's identical to House Bill 2049. Then we table it. Then we take it up Wednesday, our first meeting that we have. So we would be accomplishing, and I think Senator Francisco is right. We need to make it the same to move forward if that's our intent.
Just think it clarifies that the Senate was adopting the same thing. If anybody else brings up 17, it's still got, it has the change now in it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was clear
Okay,
what we were voting
and
on.
I'm comfortable with that as well. So I think I jumped the gun with the tabling. So, okay, all right, let's vote on that. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Now, Jason, do we need a motion to table the bill, or can I just do that as the chairman?
Madam Chair, you can just end debate on Senate Bill 17 and leave it in committee if you'd like. If you have a motion to table it, then you would need a second motion to take it off the table at a later
Okay.
date.
So we can just, is that what you said, just suspend the conversation and,
You can just end the debate on the bill.
okay,
If you choose to at this time.
okay, that's just in the debate then. Well, all right, committee, that was fun. I'm all for efficiency of the state and not redoing what we've already done to get the same result. So thank you for hanging in there with me on that. And with that, we're adjourned. We have a little extra time to answer some emails then. So thank you, committee.